Kamami tamamu nankada naitali napadla kauno yakana yunga. Namani badni tandanyanga bimbimbalya bukiana gana. Nai nari kadanya Katrina galabina. Merendi nakondi nanyawaidi nadominya gadle pele. Grandmothers, grandfathers, mothers, fathers, aunties, uncles, sisters and brothers. Today we come to sit and stand as the Kaurna do on sacred Kaurna land, stolen Kaurna land, land that has never been surrendered. We pay our respects to all the Kaurna that were, all the Kaurna that are, and all the Kaurna that will be. We pay our respects to all our elders, black and white. I feel really privileged to be here today, and I thank you for the opportunity to be here. I stand with you, and I'm really committed to seismic shifts in terms of truth-telling in this country. And I'm really interested in the rights of children in particular. We're in an environment where the focus is children, and I think children have a right to know where they've come from, and that unless they know that, the chances of them finding out where they want to go are quite limited. I like to think that the stolen generation was the trigger for lots of apologies, and I think it doesn't matter what colour you are, there's a wrongdoing here and it needs to be righted. I think of children of domestic violence and children with HIV and how they're lost. They're the invisible survivors, victims of those stories. We have to invest in our children, and our children have rights. They can't voice them for themselves, and we as adults and as a village need to do that for them. I've just had a chance to look at this book and I really love it, and I feel really proud to be here. I've been enlightened. I want to say that my husband was a stolen baby and he suicided. He was one of 4 Aboriginal children who was stolen. Out of those 4, 3 committed suicide. They were all privileged, grew up in a flash white house, flash private school education. So I want to ask you, what price? Identity. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge Diana as a writer, and I think of you as 15 weeks identalist in a hospital waiting to be adopted. And you speak of political correctness in all your speak while I am drowning in my grief. In your attempt to avoid offending, I am lost. Stop pretending. Would we ever consider changing a death certificate? Why do we even need to entertain the idea of changing a birth certificate? Melinda the imposter, hijacked by the aspirations of adopted parents, instilled to be and do better. You don't need to apologise for anything, Melinda. And Melinda, I want to apologise that you didn't have access to your mother and that your baby, Brendan, who you adopted out, never had a chance to know you before he died. So I apologise on behalf of humanity to you in particular, Melinda. Rebecca, you spoke about stolen identity, power and privilege, and this here is exactly that, an opportunity to own our feelings and be public in our mourning. You continue searching for your father. Don't give up, Rebecca. I have a white father I've never seen, and it has stayed with me that he has refused to meet me. So I know some journeys you let go of and some you continue, so I encourage you to continue if that's what you want. And I just want to say thanks. I haven't been here at Rise forever, and I feel really privileged that you've opened the gates. This is raw terrain for all of us, but know really clearly I stand with you in your attempts to give volume to your voices. I believe in adoptees and I believe in adoptee rights. Please say after me, Merende, Nakonde, Nanyawaidi, Nyatu, Karota, Minala. Say in English, this is the easy bit. Let us sit and talk together. Let us eat and drink together. Let us sing and dance together. And let us laugh and cry together. So that our children and their children's children can feel the wind and the breeze and find shelter in a storm, and sunshine in the rain. But most especially, that they can feel the warmth of a new campfire, which we today have created for them. Welcome to Kaurna country, and congratulations to all the fantastic riders. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina. So my name is Nikki Hartman, and I'm the manager of the post-adoption and forced adoption support services here at Relationships Australia. So I'd just like to say that tonight is about adoptees and the adoptee experience, and so I invite you all to be in a space of listening and learning. We have a unique and privileged opportunity to hear about the effects of adoption on those who live with adoption for their entire lives, the adoptees. I'm now going to pass you over to Di, who's one of the authors and part of IdentityRites, and hand it over to you.
Thank you. I'm just going to start with the first bit of my bio and then go into the poem Alone. I was a Valentine's Day gift, the product of forbidden love between my Greek father and Aussie mother, medical student and nurse, who decided well before my birth to sacrifice me to adoption. It was for the best. Alone. Heart beating strongly, rhythmic, pain and agony. You're not with me. I felt you go, back turned to me. You left me alone so you could be free. I'm there again behind another gate. Someone else has left me, and all I do is wait. No protests, no cries, acceptance of lies. It's time I opened the gate and left without a backward glance. Handing over to Sophie. Can't see the running.
It's a bit hard to hear down the back, so I can use that. Just have to do that on.
I've been asked to use the microphone because apparently it's a bit hard to hear at the back. Is that better? For the people at the back?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Di, for that poem. It always makes me want to light a candle for all the children who died inside when they didn't meet their mothers. Di captures that reality for many adoptees, deserted and rejected baby who was never given the chance to bond with its mother after birth. She also describes that attempt some of us continue to make to open the gate and leave behind the haunting of the cage of adoption that some of us still live within. Often there are many more abandonments that come later in life. I'm Sophie Gregory, Yunkajara woman through my father's family, I believe, whoever knows without their DNA. And I acknowledge the Kaurna people whose land was stolen before their language and religious beliefs were forbidden and children were stolen. They have an ongoing connection to their land and their ancestors living on this land. Our prosperity is built on their dispossession. I'm told I did meet my mother sometime after birth. Dorothy, she said, as the social worker gathered up the papers she had just signed, divesting her of her identity as my mother and me as her daughter. Illegitimate, my papers say. Superseded, stamped on my birth certificate. Dorothy, gift of God, I'm told. Gift for whom? The nurse gathered me up and we left the room, and I never heard my name again. A new birth certificate is issued. A new defining of birth mother and father. A new identifying name for me. A legal fiction conceived in fanciful fantasy, and I never heard my name again. It's foundational, at the heart of my core, at the core of my heart, My mother was lost at my birth, and with her went myself. A new self shakes as the earth quakes. And the earth quaked for me again when I began to go public a few years ago, cracking open the secrecy and the shame that comes with being removed from one's family and ancestry. The elephant is well and truly out of the room tonight, leaving room for all of us. Thank you all for coming here today to celebrate the publication of our book, Adopted. Special thanks to my fellow authors, Di and Rebecca and Melinda. We've done this work as members of the group IdentityRites. And thank you, Nikki, for the assistance that you've given us to get us here today. And I acknowledge the special guests that are in the room with us. I'd like to acknowledge in the room all those who are living with the ongoing effects of adoption. You all know the myths and the grief of loss. Adoptees, many lost at the moment of birth, and still defined by adoption into adulthood and old age. Mothers, often maltreated by health professionals for being single. Mothers and fathers and extended families who lost opportunities to parent and relate to their child. Adoptive parents, many with stories of loss through miscarriages or deaths of their natural children. Their many were let down without any expert assistance to form loving attachments with a stranger's child. They were, and in spite of the evidence, still are to a great extent, led to believe the child is a blank slate. Adoption is a great social experiment that continues, yet has never been adequately researched. To those of you who have young adopted children, I encourage you to remember your child comes with a history. The history lives within the child. The child will always have two families. And whatever a child hears about its first family goes straight to the heart, because it's about identity. Your love and care can influence the outcome of their lives, but you cannot change heredity. The connection with your children will be strongest if you allow the child to talk about and find their first family when they ask. In the same way that you can love more than one child, a child is capable of loving more than one mother. Then there are the people we are closest to, the ones we wish could truly understand what it means for us to live with a primal wound. They are our partners, spouses, exes, our children and extended families. If you are privileged to not have been adopted, you can try but never really understand the depths of rejection and disconnection some of us hold inside. A lot of the time we don't have words for it and can't adequately explain. And yet our pain becomes your pain too. Our book is in some ways an invitation to you all to understand what it is like for us to be adopted. These experiences are our own, and every adoptee has their own unique story. Yet through our networks we know our experiences are common. We need the people around us to be able to support us, to find and express the truths within our own lives. We've lived with many cover-ups and lies. And to the people who work with us and accept our complex and sometimes difficult natures, there are a number of references to social workers in the book, because along with doctors and nurses, we met them in unfriendly circumstances when we were babies. Based on no evidence at all, they thought they knew what was best for us, and some still do. Many of us still have problems with authority figures. We are distressed when asked about our family history by doctors and counsellors. They're not asking about our adoptive families. They're asking about our severed families of origin. One of our hopes in producing this book is to reach out to those professionals who work with us and help them to understand that for many of us, adoption has lifelong effects, especially triggered by subsequent losses, including renewed feelings of rejection when attempted reunions fail. Many of us look like strong, courageous and successful people, yet inside we can harbour a very hurt place of rejection that gets in the way of achieving all we know we are capable of doing. A therapist who works with people with addictions noticed how many of his clients are adopted, and his observation is that while adoptees don't appear to be depressed, when their depression is measured, they're off the scale. These things are generally not known, and there's much work to be done in the education of current therapists. And it's with my special thanks to Ross Womersley, CEO of SACOSS, who has already enabled my voice to be heard through the radio and through an encounter at SACOSS. He's here today to give us the opportunity to heal some of our old wounds and the hopes of reaching the wider audience of therapists. Thanks, Ross.
Thank you so much. I ran out of my office and I left my book behind. So I'm going to work off what I remember I'd intended to say. And first and foremost, I really wanted to say congratulations. I think that it's been a fantastic effort and you've covered some enormous territory to get here. And I hope in all sorts of ways it has at least had some therapy in the midst of it. I think, and I can commend to you, I've spent some time with the book over the last couple of weeks, and I pick it up and I put it down, I read a little and I get miserable, I've cried, I've smiled, I've enjoyed, I've momentarily felt as though I had a little feeling as to what it might be to have been some of our authors, and I can thoroughly commend it to you. I'm representative in a sense of those of us that carry our professional roles, and in all sorts of ways I'm representative and probably responsible for some of the wounds that people have endured across time. And for that I apologise, not just for myself, but I apologise for all of the other people who have acted in hopefully mostly ignorance, hopefully mostly thoughtlessness, but possibly sometime even in vindictive and nasty ways. So I'm sorry that might be the case, and I'm sorry that you might have been on the receiving end of that. I think that the thing that the book does for all of us who haven't lived your lives is that it invites us, as we were told at the start of ceremonies this afternoon, it invites us to listen. It invites us to, just for a moment, take the time to try and encounter people where they are in the stories revealed and the poems shared. And I would absolutely and strongly encourage all of you to take the time to do that. And you don't have to rush it. You know, if you're working with it and you're reading and it feels miserable and you don't want to read anymore, then stop. But don't allow that to necessarily prevent you from going back there, because for all of us there are deep and important lessons to be learned. And I'm enormously grateful, for having been invited to come and do this little presentation. But I'm enormously grateful that you've had the courage and capacity and the wherewithal and determination to get on and do it, because indeed we all ought to be grateful for that. And I hope that there's a very wide audience that comes to appreciate and learn and benefit from this. So I just say congratulations again to you all, and thank you for taking the time to help at least me and hopefully many other people understand a little bit more about what this stuff means. And hopefully in that process we'll get a little better at making sure that we don't quite deliver the wounds that we've been known to in the past. So, well done.
Yes, we're very grateful to Ross coming tonight after some of the things that we put in the book, but yeah. Now I'm supposed to be introducing David. Oh, here he is. Hi, David. David, without David, there wouldn't have been a book, I think. We first heard about David through his work with other marginalised groups. David has helped many people find the poetry in their lives and thus give some beauty to some of the difficult times. Thanks, David. I was a bit concerned when I thought, I don't know that I've seen you yet.
Well, I was bang on time, 5 minutes late.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. I really like this book, and that's something that I would say, but I do actually genuinely really like this book. And I've been trying to decide why I really like this book. The workshops were great fun, they're really easy to do. Most of my work's pretty easy. I sit with people who have something interesting to say and usually have really interesting ways of saying it. But again, I really like this book, and I like it more than other books I've been involved with. So again, I'm still trying to identify what that is. The voices are strong. There's 4 different authors, and they stayed very different authors through the process, with very individual voices. And again, that's happened before, so I still don't know why I love this book so much. I think possibly it's something to do with the fact that it is quite a difficult book. There is quite a lot of vulnerability and pain and bleakness and darkness in this book, but it's done with great control, and it's done with sort of great integrity, and it's really, really readable. I have wasted some time reading this book over and over again, and I really enjoy reading it. I think whatever the sort of therapeutic outcomes or the journey that the authors have been on, the reason I really like this book is it's good literature. It's great writing. I think all the pieces stand out. All the pieces stand up on their own. There isn't a weak part of the book. There isn't something we've had to hide in the order. It's just really, really strong, courageous, gutsy writing, and I think that's why I really like this book. It was an absolute pleasure to work with you. It was joyous, and the outcome I think is smashing. I'm actually proud to have been the facilitator of this book. I hope that you are really proud of being the authors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the Honourable Nat Cook is here, MP, member for Fisher. She spoke about her adoption in the South Australian Parliament during the debate about the Adoption Review Bill, allowing the House to see that adoption is about adults as well as children. Nat's here to launch our book today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll try and keep it together and stay sort of sensible and professional as I do this on behalf of Susan Close, who strings her words together extremely well. I firstly want to acknowledge Kaurna elders past, present and emerging, and say this was and always will be Kaurna land, and thank you for the beautiful Kaurna welcome. So I am Nat Cook. I'm the member for Fisher, and however my name is actually Kylie. So yeah, I was hoping it might be Kylie Packer, but not so much. I don't have an hour, and I could go on. I'm a politician, can ramble, so I'll try and keep it tidy for you, just to display a little of my feelings and my connection to the stories within the book, which took me probably many more sits and breaks and tissues than other people to read. So thanks, Susan, for that one. So my mother found herself pregnant and Catholic and 16, and with a mother that had passed away when she was a child, and a father who promised to look after her and then passed away while she was pregnant. So a very, very torrid journey saw her put on a bus from Queensland and sent to South Australia to do some training. And she stayed at Norwood. We know where it was at Norwood, at the convent. And she gave birth to me in a very hot February and found herself on a bus back to Queensland within a week. A very unwell young lady. I'm not reading notes. I'm just going to read you a poem, which is it's very short. Don't want to steal your thunder, but it kind of sums it up. Why be in doubt if you can find out the puzzling parts of your identity? I really did care and placed you where you would thrive more easily. The profound effect and constant regret went unrecognised both morally and legally. So that's her poem to me. You can see I'm well adjusted. But I think for her it was this simple fact that she didn't want to do what she had to do, but she knew she had to do it. And I had a great childhood. I would have been blissfully and totally unaware, except for the fact that I looked like nobody. I was like this enormous Viking woman with size 12 feet that needed men's shoes when I was 13 years old, amongst a bunch of English roses. And we went overseas, and I spent, I thought at the age of, I think it was 11, maybe even 10, and I thought for sure I would find someone that looked like me there. So I peered into every relative's face, seemingly in the whole of England, and probably Scotland and Wales, everywhere I went. And I, again, found nobody. I wondered why my birth certificate was issued so much later than when I was born. I wondered why there was so much anxiety around giving me a passport. I couldn't quite work it out, but they had a reason for everything. And it's not that I feel any malice or discomfort about the reason. My story's a bit different, because I just took a random phone call at the age of 28. And my whole world changed. But it changed in a hysterical, I was hysterical, but I was laughing hysterically because everything just dropped. Everything just fell into place. Well, that's why I don't look like you, and that's why I don't sound like you, and that's why none of you laugh at my jokes. That's why I had to sneak off to swimming. That's why I had to sneak off to netball. Oh, goodness. So the journeys are different for everybody, and the book is beautiful, and I'm sorry I'm a blubbering mess, but thank you so much for having me. Congratulations, Beck, Diana, Melinda, Sophie. Thank you so much to all of you for putting your journey into a book which can be shared, and I will post it to my mother. So thank you.
Just a little secret which most of us who were at the dedication of the memorial last year know. Susan didn't hold it together last year either. And so now I'll just hand over to the other authors who are going to read. Have you got your preference for order, Melinda? Yes. Okay. Thanks. Let the book speak.
Hi, I'm Melinda Rackham, or Kerry Ann Burgess, as I was known at birth. Great to be here. I was just going to read and not say something, but now I'm up here with the microphone. Beware. Actually, no, I won't. I'll just read. But I was thinking when Nat was speaking before, it's like it is well adjusted to cry when you're talking about something painful and unjust. It's like it is really well adjusted, and we should be crying more in public, and we should be acknowledging the feelings from the past to heal them. And for me, this book was about a lot of healing. It was a literary project, and it was a healing project, and it was a journey. And one of the greatest things about this book was that I started to talk to a lot of people about being an adoptee, which I didn't not talk to people about before, but I had this sort of secret shame. I can remember being, I don't know, maybe 7 at primary school, and this little girl said to me, "Oh, I know something terrible about you. I heard something terrible about you. Is it true?" And I'm like, and she said, "Oh, you're adopted." And I went, "Oh, yeah." And I didn't know at that age that society saw it as a shameful, terrible thing, and that, and you know, all those things about, you know, the bad genes of the adoption. So as I grew older, I got fascinated with things like, if anyone's seen that movie, The Bad Seed, it's amazing. It's like, yes, the bad adopted genes will come through and the little child will be a murderer, even though she looks nice. So there's all these assumptions about adopted people. And, and it was so great to say, I'm adopted, and I've also had a child I adopted out. And just, you know, nearly everyone knows someone who's adopted, or their partner's was adopted, or it's so prevalent in our society. And for me, that was a very healing thing, to just start to have a voice and start to have an identity in my adoption. So the poem I'm reading today is not so much about adoption itself, but about thinking ahead to the end of my life and where I will be when I die, my final resting place and my final womb. So I'll just read it now. Thank you all for coming and celebrating this with us. Okay, so the poem's called Remains. Wrapped around myself in fetal comfort, cradled by silky egg membrane, head flattened from lying alone in a crib too long. Struggle leeches away. A memory park, but my final womb will be planted in a forest, a memory park beneath a simple stone. And as my body bubbles and turns to slime, she will feed the tree planted in me. Baby roots will weave through my bones, tendrils probe, my heart squashed by longing, holding me from the inside. Searching, I was always searching for others to touch. Now I'm in rich soil, a part of. I didn't think I'd feel it all. my cells still repairing themselves, tingling, achingly dull. I'm a watcher through muslin, inside and outside and above and around. I'm helpless while animals are slaughtered. This is the essence of psychotherapy, philosophy, spirituality. Detached and mindful, to notice, not hold. Racked, expecting terror, never let go, don't run out to meet the devil. I was all I had, so safe to be bound with self, to forgive those who smirked at my foolishness. Enforested now, it matters little. Distance, diminished. We know. We are. So, thank you.
Thank you for coming, and thank you to my friends who are my family. So I'm just going to read my poem and not say too much. Memorial 1. 2 stones mean nothing to me on the background of celebrity, and the mother pack, a movable, crab-like, a sidestepping, disappearing act. Memorial 2, identity slaughter. Forgot you had a daughter? No legal order with no public mourning for the secret she keeps. Memorial 3, I close my eyes to stop the noise, only to see my mother, poker-faced and grinning, absent to her newborn.
Thanks, Beck. This demonstrates our experiences are all really different. I'm here as a late discovery adoptee. I'm not sure how you define late as late, but I was 43 when I found out I was adopted. So this poem was at the end of the process of the writing, and I like it because it's got some humour. It's got some things that I found quite embarrassing as time went on. So I think I'll just fill out some of those little facts because you'll hear them and you think, no, that can't be right. I grew up in a family where with two Dutch immigrants. I learnt later in life that my oldest brother was adopted, so there was no shortage of time for my mum to talk about adoption. So here I am in this Dutch family. I look like my brother. Their first child, at first natural child. The only difficulty is that I'm 5 months younger than him. Now, we're talking about 5. Yes, you heard 5. And the embarrassing thing is that after school, I went to university and I studied pure mathematics. I never worked it out. I had no reason to doubt my mother. I trusted her, I believed. And in fact, it was part of who I was. I was really special. I was this miracle baby. So this poem talks about the quest to find out. It wasn't even about adoption. The sad thing was that it was really about one of my children. I have had 4 beautiful children. They're all really different, and I delight in them each to see how they've gone, where they've gone, who they've married, who they've been with their children. So I've got my 2 older ones, and I've got my 2 younger ones, and in the middle there's a big hole for the one that died. So, and then the next one after her death was a boy and he's my son who has intellectual disability, and around that time when I was asking questions in 1998, he was diagnosed with Asperger's. So he had Asperger's and intellectual disability, and as then in 1998, that's when people were finding out it was late for him. And it was around that time also that I was thinking ahead as to where I was going to go for him to go to school. I was living in Whyalla. I'd moved from New South Wales to Whyalla. We'd been there over 20 years. And Whyalla had sort of run short of the things that I needed for him. So I was looking at where to go. So I asked my mum some questions. So I'll just read this now, but when you hear these things, you can laugh because there's some of them, and I think through writing with this and putting my life up to when I found about my adoption has helped me understand why it just seems so unreal. Every time I tell this story, it is just unreal, because it isn't real. So the roots, I don't have those roots. So, okay, here we go. I grew up Delft Dutch and double at that. Believed my birth a miracle, in fact. Survived the birth of my brother, my twin, when they took him out and left me in. These were the stories my dear mother told, the myths of childhood and country of old. Her memories of war, friends that went missing, her despair when she lost her first children. Of all of her stories, mine was the best. My brother and I were the bestest of friends, 5 months apart. So you've got your own stories. 5 months apart in the same class at school, I never suspected it wasn't the truth. Decades went by, I left home and was wed, studied, worked and moved interstate. Had my own children, in total had 5, one with autism, another had died. I asked my dear mum some more of my dad. He died years before, but nobody cared. Her reply was abrupt and quite unexpected. All you need know is that he was a bastard. Undaunted, I questioned more of my father, met his friend at McDonald's Maroubra. Agendas complete, we said our goodbyes when she dropped the pin that shattered the lies. 2 of you 4 were adopted, she said. The first 2, hearsay the neighbour had shared. The first was adopted, I knew. The next, adoption confirmation requests were sent. Time stopped as I read in my car. Our records indicated adopted you were. It may cause distress to have this confirmed. For help, please don't hesitate to phone. I called my twin brother and asked, did you know? How long? 20 years. Brothers and wives too. Mother threatened. We solemnised oaths to respect her wish to not tell you the truth. My no longer brother rolled back the stone on the truth everyone but I had known. Resurrected, I emerged from a grave that claimed mother and brothers in exchange. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. It's been an amazing journey. Started with David, lots of rawness, lots of healing, very cathartic. Part of our journey and part of what we want is to educate people about adoption. So often people who talk out about it get called the bad adoptees. We were the ones that were ungrateful. But what we want is for our trauma and our experience to inform the child rearing practices. Now, so it's not repeated. And so people know the needs of children. We know the needs for normal development. Why do we have this blind spot about the needs of children when it comes to adoption, surrogacy? We have this blind spot that says love will cover it all, and it doesn't. So